Stop what you're doing right now. The closing bell just rang Wednesday, February 25th, 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And the paper crash they engineered yesterday was not just a failure. It was a catastrophic backfire that just forced COMEX into the one thing they've been desperately trying to avoid for the last 3 weeks. A stealth default. I just received leaked communications from inside a major COMEX clearinghouse, showing that they are now officially invoking emergency contract clauses to force massive institutional holders to accept cash settlement instead of physical silver delivery. Not optional settlement, not negotiated settlement, forced cash settlement under emergency provisions that were designed for war or natural disaster. They're using them to prevent a delivery default. And while COMEX is trying to hand out fiat currency instead of metal, the Shanghai Gold Exchange just issued a direct warning to Western bullion banks that will be remembered as the moment the global silver market split into two permanently separate systems. This is John A.G., and what I'm about to show you is the endgame executing in real time. Let me connect what happened in the last 48 hours because the sequence proves this was planned and it failed spectacularly. Tuesday, 3:15 p.m., two major bullion banks dumped 400 million ounces of naked paper shorts onto COMEX in 45 minutes. Silver crashed from $86 to $71, a 17% drop designed to trigger panic selling and force contract holders to accept cash settlements instead of demanding physical delivery. I showed you that physical dealers completely ignored the paper crash. Wholesale bids held at $98 while COMEX showed $71, a $27 premium. Physical premiums exploded 35% during the crash, proving the paper price was fiction. Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, the institutional whales who hold the largest March delivery contracts did exactly what the bullion banks feared. They didn't panic, they didn't sell, they demanded delivery. My source inside a clearing broker confirmed at 11:47 a.m. Wednesday that delivery notices for March contracts spiked by 340% compared to normal pre-delivery volumes. The entities that were supposed to get scared by the crash instead used it as confirmation that the system is breaking, and physical is the only asset that matters. System collapses don't happen randomly, and neither do emergency clause invocations. The communication I received at 2:18 p.m. Wednesday came from a risk manager at a COMEX clearinghouse. The message, paraphrased to protect the source: legal as authorized use of emergency settlement provisions under extraordinary market conditions, Clause 14C. Largest institutional holders being notified that physical delivery will be substituted with cash equivalent at exchange-determined pricing. Expect significant pushback, but legal counsel confirms we have contractual authority. This is not a negotiation. This is COMEX telling entities that expected to receive 50 million ounces, 80 million ounces, that they're getting cash instead. And the exchange-determined pricing language means COMEX sets the price, not the market, not the physical premium, the exchange, which means they can cash settle at $71, the manipulated crash price, even though physical is trading at $98 or $105 in dealer markets. Now, the entities getting these notices just got robbed of $27.34 per ounce in value. On an 80 million ounce position, that's $16 billion stolen through forced cash settlement at artificial prices. Here's the real-time intelligence that shows how the Shanghai warning changes everything. At 9:23 a.m. Wednesday Shanghai time, which is 8:23 p.m., Tuesday Eastern, the Shanghai Gold Exchange issued a formal communication to Western bullion banks and LBMA-approved dealers. The communication, obtained by my source in the Asian physical market, states in direct language: SGE will not accept cash settlements as substitute for contracted physical delivery. All parties with outstanding delivery obligations to SGE members must fulfill with physical metal or face permanent exclusion from Eastern market participation and loss of SGE trading privileges. This is not a suggestion. This is Shanghai drawing a line. You either deliver physical metal to Asian buyers, or you're permanently banned from the largest physical precious metals market in the world. China consumes approximately 200 million ounces of silver annually. India, another 150 million. Combined, that's 350 million ounces, roughly 35% of global supply. If Western banks get locked out of supplying those markets because they tried to cash settle instead of delivering metal, they lose access to the largest and fastest growing demand base on the planet. Let me now show you why the miner revolt is the final piece that makes this a complete system break. My source in the primary mining industry confirmed at 1:47 p.m. Wednesday that two major silver mining CEOs held an emergency call Tuesday night after the paper crash. The decision that came out of that call: immediate halt on all wholesale shipments to LBMA vaults and COMEX warehouses. The miners are refusing to supply the entities that are manipulating prices and forcing cash settlements. One of the CEOs, according to my source, stated in an internal communication, We will not continue shipping physical silver at 71 paper prices to vaults that are using our metal to suppress markets and defraud investors. Effective immediately, all wholesale contracts to LBMA and COMEX suspended pending review. These aren't junior miners. These are top 10 global producers. Combined annual production, approximately 85 million ounces. If they stop shipping to Western vaults, COMEX and LBMA lose their primary restocking mechanism. The registered inventory that's already depleted to 39 million ounces doesn't get replenished. And when March deliveries drain another 30 million ounces through the forced settlements and the remaining physical deliveries, the vaults go to single-digit millions. At that point, any delivery demand becomes impossible to fulfill. Here's the emergency money trail that proves the smart money knew this was coming before the official announcements. Between Tuesday's close and Wednesday 2:11 p.m., my contact at a major Swiss refiner confirmed they processed orders totaling $890 million for guaranteed physical delivery. But the order flow pattern was different from previous days. Instead of orders coming from family offices and sovereign wealth funds, the orders came from commodity trading firms and bullion banks themselves. The entities that are supposed to be supplying physical to the market are now buying physical for their own accounts. They're front-running their own clients. They know the forced cash settlements are coming. They know the miner supply halt is coming. They know Shanghai is drawing the line, and they are securing physical metal for themselves before the system admits it cannot deliver to anyone else. One order, according to my source, came from a bullion bank trading desk for $340 million in physical silver with delivery to a Singapore vault. The same bank that sold 400 million ounces of paper shorts on Tuesday to crash the price is buying $340 million in physical on Wednesday to protect their own position. That is the definition of fraud. Manipulate the paper price down. Buy physical at the manipulated price. Force your clients into cash settlement. Keep the physical for yourself. Now let me explain what the emergency clause invocation means legally and practically. Every COMEX futures contract has standard terms and an emergency provisions section. The emergency provisions allow the exchange to suspend, modify, or terminate normal contract terms under extraordinary circumstances. War, government action, natural disaster, force measure. What COMEX is doing is classifying the current delivery demand as an extraordinary market condition that justifies forcing cash settlement. The legal question is whether high delivery demand constitutes an emergency. Demand for delivery is not a natural disaster. It's the basic function of a futures contract. If the exchange cannot fulfill delivery, that's not an emergency. That's a default. But COMEX is framing it as an emergency to avoid the word default. And by invoking emergency clauses, they're attempting to make the cash settlement legally enforceable. The entities that get these notices can either accept the cash settlement or sue. Suing takes months or years. By then, the market has moved, the prices have changed, and the legal remedy is monetary damages, not physical delivery. COMEX is betting that most institutional holders will take the cash rather than fight a multi-year legal battle. Here's why the Shanghai warning makes that strategy impossible for Asian exposure. Western institutional holders might accept forced cash settlement because they're used to paper markets and legal remedies. But Asian buyers, particularly Chinese state-backed entities and Indian industrial users, operate differently. Physical delivery is not optional. It's required for production, for reserves, for strategic stockpiles. When Shanghai says deliver or be banned, they mean it. Chinese and Indian buyers cannot accept cash settlement because they need the actual metal. Solar panel manufacturers cannot run production lines with cash. They need silver paste. Electronics manufacturers cannot build components with fiat currency. They need physical silver. If Western banks try to cash settle Asian contracts, those buyers will immediately go to Shanghai, to local refiners, to direct miner relationships. And when they do, the price they pay will not be $71 COMEX paper. It will be $110, $130 physical with guaranteed delivery. The Western banks that forced cash settlement just lost those clients permanently. And those clients represent 35% of global demand. Let me show you the three scenarios for the next 72 hours as we hit month-end delivery period. Scenario 1. COMEX successfully forces cash settlements on the largest holders. March delivery volume comes in at 70 million ounces instead of the expected 150 million. COMEX survives another month. Paper price stabilizes at $75.85. Physical premiums stay at 30 to 40% over paper. The system limps forward, but the miners continue the supply halt. Shanghai buyers shift to Asian refiners. Western market share declines permanently. Scenario 2, one or more major institutional holders refuse the forced cash settlement and sue COMEX for breach of contract. The lawsuit becomes public. Mainstream financial media covers it. The forced settlement story goes viral. Confidence in COMEX collapses. Paper contracts trade at 20-30% discounts to physical. The market splits permanently. Scenario 3, Shanghai makes good on the threat and bans Western banks from Eastern markets. Chinese and Indian buyers shift 350 million ounces of annual demand away from LBMA and COMEX. Western vaults become irrelevant. The global silver market becomes two systems: a small Western paper casino trading at suppressed prices, and a large Eastern physical market trading at true supply-demand prices that are 50-100% higher. Here's the asymmetric position that is the only rational response. Physical silver held outside Western vault systems, outside COMEX warehouses, outside LBMA custody, in jurisdictions that are not subject to US or UK emergency provisions: Singapore, Hong Kong, Switzerland, locations where emergency clause invocations from COMEX have no legal effect. The entities moving $890 million into Swiss and Singapore vaults this week are not speculating. They're securing metal in jurisdictions where forced cash settlement cannot reach them. When COMEX declares emergency provisions for US to held silver, it doesn't affect metal in Singapore vaults. When LBMA tries to implement cash settlement for UK held positions, it doesn't affect metal in Swiss custody. The geographic diversification is the protection against the very scenario that's unfolding right now, and the entities who positioned before Wednesday's emergency clause invocation are already safe. The entities waiting to see how this plays out will find that by the time they try to move metal offshore, export restrictions or emergency holds prevent them from doing so. The second asymmetric position is understanding that the miner supply halt creates a squeeze timeline that is measurable in weeks. COMEX registered inventory, 39 million ounces. Monthly mine production from the two miners who halted shipments, approximately 7 million ounces. If those 7 million ounces per month stop flowing to COMEX, and March deliveries drain 20-30 million ounces even with forced cash settlements, registered inventory drops to 9 to 19 million ounces by end of March. April delivery demand, if it's even 30% of normal, is another 15-20 million ounces. Inventory goes negative or single-digit millions. At that point, COMEX either suspends silver trading entirely, implements cash-only settlement for all contracts regardless of emergency clauses, or admits default. All three outcomes are catastrophic for paper silver. And all three outcomes make physical silver held outside the system exponentially more valuable, as the only remaining way to actually own the metal. The third asymmetric position requires understanding that Shanghai's warning is the first shot in a global realignment of commodity markets. If China successfully forces Western banks to either deliver physical or lose Eastern market access, it sets a precedent for other commodities: copper, gold, rare earths, every commodity where Western paper markets have been used to suppress prices and control supply. The entities positioned in physical assets outside Western paper systems before this realignment are positioned for a repricing that extends beyond silver. This is not just about one metal. This is about the end of Western price-setting authority in physical commodity markets. And the entities who understand that are moving into physical everything held in Asian or neutral jurisdictions outside the reach of COMEX emergency clauses and LBMA force majeure. Here's where we are with the precision the data permits. Tuesday's 400 million ounce paper crash failed. Instead of panic selling, institutional holders demanded record physical delivery. Wednesday 2 to 18 p.m., COMEX invoked emergency contract clauses, forcing largest holders into cash settlement at exchange-determined prices. Stealth default. Shanghai issued warning 9:23 a.m. Wednesday their time. Deliver physical or be permanently banned from Eastern markets. Two major mining CEOs halted all wholesale shipments to LBMA and COMEX effective immediately, refusing to supply manipulators. 85 million ounces annual production cut off from Western vaults. Bullion banks buying $890 million physical for own accounts while forcing clients into cash settlement. Geographic split executing. Western paper casino versus Eastern physical market. 72 hours until month-end delivery period. Registered inventory 39 million ounces. Miner supply cut. Shanghai drawing line. System breaking into two separate markets right now. This is John A.G. The paper crash yesterday was their final desperate attempt to scare you into selling before the delivery default became visible. It failed. Institutional whales demanded physical. COMEX responded with forced cash settlements under emergency clauses designed for war. Shanghai responded by threatening permanent ban for anyone trying to cash settle Asian contracts. Miners responded by halting supply to the manipulators. The system is splitting in two. Western paper trading at $85 with forced cash settlement. Eastern physical trading at $110 or $130 with guaranteed delivery required. The entities positioned in physical outside Western vault systems before today are on the right side of the greatest commodity market realignment in 50 years. Subscribe immediately because what happens in the next 72 hours as month-end delivery hits will determine whether COMEX survives April or whether March was the last month they could pretend to function. The emergency clauses are the admission. They cannot deliver. This is John AG, and the stealth default is executing right now.